All right, so World No Tobacco Day. We're going to go ahead and invite some guests into the studio this morning. So we have some regular suspects at this point that they're becoming regulars here in the program. Definitely Shamari Scott is no stranger to the program. He's the Chief Business Officer at Health City Cayman Islands. Good morning, Shamari.
Good morning, Sandy. How are you doing?
Not too bad. How are you?
I am good. I'm good. I see it's overcast,
I
reminding us the hurricane
know.
hurricane season is upon us.
Yeah, it's more like the mosquito season, but anyway. They're back with a vengeance. Oh my gosh, it doesn't take much rain for them to start coming out again. But so good to have you here. The weeks are just flying by, Shamari. I tell you what.
Whatever happened to those mutated mosquitoes that were supposed to kill off all the
You
mosquitoes
know, it
from
just didn't. That was one experiment that just didn't work, and we're still being plagued by mosquitoes.
they seem to have gotten worse if you ask me. But
Yeah.
yeah.
Oh my goodness. All right. We also have Dr. Harsha, who's a consultant pulmonologist here on the program. Dr. Harsha, good morning and welcome.
Hi, good morning, Sandra.
How are you?
I'm good. I'm doing good.
Okay, wonderful. So good to see you. All right, we'll get some details
Hi.
on Dr. Harsha here in just a second. We've also got Jennifer Weber. Now, Miss Jennifer has been on the program before. Good morning, Jennifer.
Good morning.
How are you?
I'm great, thanks.
Good. The last time you were on a very popular segment about menopause.
Oh, yes, that's right. And my fan is still on and off and on and off every day at my desk.
Oh my goodness. Well, hopefully it's getting better.
Yes, thank you.
So welcome back. It's so nice to see you again. And of course, Ms. Jennifer is the oncology operations manager at Health City Cayman Islands. And we also have Harry, is it Tustin? Good
Tustin.
morning, Tustin. Good morning, Harry.
Good morning, Sandy. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. How are you?
Yeah, very well, thank you. How are you doing?
Yeah, fantastic. So Harry amazingly has gone through a smoking cessation program. So he's going to tell us all about that and his experience and why he decided to go that route. So welcome to everyone. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. We've got Bishop Hero Blair joining us from overseas, I believe. Wishing Miss Juanita a speedy recovery. Yes, indeed. You know, people here are like family on the program. So anytime we hear something going on with one of our listeners, it really touches us in a different way. So good morning to Richard. Miss Renita also sending out some positivity and some prayers. So the World Health Organization and public health advocates around the world come together every single year on May the 31st, which is tomorrow, to celebrate World No Tobacco Day. And the theme this year is we need food, not tobacco. Well, some of us don't need as much food either. But anyway, we won't get into that too much. But, you know, I think that I was saying this before we invited our guests in the program. I think we all get the key message now that smoking is not good for you. We're going to talk about some of the emerging areas of concern with Dr. Harsha this morning. Harsha, yes, who's the expert here amongst everyone, I suppose. But Dr. Harsha, can you tell us a little bit? And I know Shamari, I'm sure you're going to want to introduce. Is this Dr. Harsha's first time with us?
No, so Dr. Harsha would have been here undercover, under disguise, when we were talking about the sleep lab with Dr.
Oh,
Archita
yes.
as well. So, Dr. Harsha has close to a decade of experience in this area.
Uh-huh.
And due to the fact that we keep expanding and ensuring that we want to meet the needs of all of the Cayman Islands population as well as overseas, Dr. Archita with Dr. Harsha are helping to, more or less fill out the pulmonology team, which
Mm.
also deals with the sleep lab and then obviously with smoking cessation and the such. They have a key role to play, knowing that has to do with your pulmonary function in your lungs and the such as well.
Yes, wonderful. So, let's talk about some of the facts, Dr. Harsha, some of the really cold, hard facts as it relates to smoking related lung cancer. So, what are we looking at?
So we all know that, starting, with the World No Tobacco Day. Like we are celebrating this 31st. So
Mhm,
every year we celebrate this to create awareness about smoking, and also we promote how to quit smoking. So
mhm,
because we all know like the adverse effects of smoking, right? So you said like lung cancer. So
mhm,
lung cancer is only one of the cause. One of the disease which can cause. Which can be, but there are many other lung diseases, or otherwise also even many other diseases like affecting the whole of the body. So that's why this campaign and everything. So quit
mhm,
smoking. Okay. So coming to lung cancer, definitely we know every puff we smoke, it contains carcinogens, it contains free radicals and toxins. So when we inhale this tobacco, when we smoke, it doesn't contain tobacco only. There
mhm,
are many other ingredients to that. So so when we inhale this, definitely this will like that too when we inhale it over a long time. So it is going to affect the whole lining of the respiratory system. So when it is affected, over the time, the cells over there, they get mutated and they lead to lung cancer.
mhm,
But lung cancer is not the only thing which is, which the tobacco smoking causes. There are many other diseases, like, it can affect heart, causing heart attacks, and it can
mhm,
cause stroke. It can cause, like, there is something called a COPD, that chronic obstructive pulmonary disease.
mhm.
So caused due to the constant irritation of the mucosal lining. So these are some of the other effects of smoking, I would say.
Mhm. And this is really it's such a worldwide area of concern that one of the main objectives of the World Health Organization in sort of promoting World No Tobacco Day is really to raise global awareness through a much larger campaign about even for tobacco farmers, giving them options in terms of alternative crop production, marketing opportunities for them to do something else other than farming and tobacco, encouraging tobacco farmers to grow sustainable, nutritious crops instead, exposing them to the industry's effort to interfere with attempts to substitute tobacco growing with sustainable crops, and addressing in this particular year, hence the theme, we need food, not tobacco, helping them to contribute to the global food crises, which is, in other words, we don't need tobacco. That's not going to lead to anything good, but we do need other crops and other foods in order to feed people around the world. We saw coming out of COVID, there were a lot of areas around the world. Even here, it was difficult to get certain types of produce and food. And there were entire regions and countries that were cutting back on exporting some of their goods. We saw, for example, in Asia, there was, some real concerns about the production of rice and green and other things. And so they were cutting back on the export of those items because they wanted to make sure that they had enough to feed their domestic population. And that wasn't the only crop. There was a number of, different things that kind of cropped up, no pun intended, as a concern, as an area of concern. So governments play a key role here, Shamari, policymakers trying to step up legislation and develop suitable policies and strategies and enable market conditions for both tobacco farmers to shift to growing other more sustainable products and produce, as well as encouraging smokers to kick the habit. Now, I thought that the timing of this was so amazing because just I think it was Sunday evening, someone sent me a link out of Miami where the local government there is actually making some legislative changes, again, aimed at addressing this issue. So the city of Miami is now implementing a smoking ban that goes into effect on June the 5th. And the Miami City Commission voted to ban smoking at all city parks and beaches. And the new ordinance, which was passed by the commissioners on Friday, prohibits the use of tobacco, cannabis, and e-cigarettes. So I thought that this was certainly a move in the right direction in terms of expansion efforts, because there's some places, I mean, in Cayman, public smoking, like in restaurants and bars, is now prohibited in public spaces, but e-cigarettes are not yet addressed in the legislation. And I think this is interesting, and maybe we could speak to this. I don't know, Shamari or Jennifer, if you want to jump in here, where sometimes governments seem to be a little bit delayed in their response to emerging situations. So, e-cigs have been on the market for a minute. We saw vaping as well really come into its own. There were some concerns in the early days about, the safety of a particular type of vape that had everybody in high alert. But now that that's been addressed, it seems like people have kind of gone back to thinking, oh, vaping is somehow safe, or it's safer than smoking. So can we talk about this both from a policy perspective as well as medically? What are we looking at with vaping?
And definitely, just to jump in, Sandy, to say that this is where policymakers can have an impact by looking and understanding what we need to do within the society to help our citizens to be healthier. Now, obviously, there is the education component, which even Jennifer, as well as some of our physicians, would have been in the schools explaining the dangers of vaping to the younger children, right? And to some of our teens that are in schools. Because as you would know, Sandy, I recall when I was in school, there was a big education campaign about cigarettes at that time, right? And why you shouldn't smoke cigarettes.
Yes.
And I can actually think back to at least my generation that those that smoke cigarettes are minimal, at least from my class in middle school and high school. But now I don't know if anywhere that there is profit to be made, all of a sudden the e-cigarettes have seemed to take the place of your traditional cigarettes that were pushed to the youth previously. Now, if we definitely have the data that shows us that it's becoming more and more of an issue in the Cayman Islands, this is where obviously you would hope, and I'm sure they're looking at it, the Ministry of Health and the such will be looking to see how through legislation as well as education we can try and keep our youth as healthy as possible, because at the end of the day the country is going to be built on the education we have as well as the health of the population. So you are correct that they need to have a look at it, and sometimes there is a lag. However, because we already have legislation outlawing certain use of smoking indoors and the such, it shouldn't be that much of a stretch to be able to add on to it. Usually it's that first step that's most difficult, but to add other components shouldn't be as difficult once the evidence backs it up.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. So let's talk about, what some of the evidence is, because again, this is a sincere area of concern. I know that in Australia, for example, the government has banned recreational vaping in a major crackdown. That was earlier in the month that we got some information on that as well. So, governments are starting to realize, I think health professionals have been concerned about this for a minute now. Dr. Harsha, what do we know specifically about vaping?
So vaping, nowadays, like people think that like vaping is safer than conventional smoking, but and that's why they feel it is like some of them also think that no, they encourage it also. So but the thing is even the vaping is not safe, and there are few studies which says that even vaping is like itself causes carcinogenic. And also one more thing, the possibility of COPD is higher in those who smoke, I mean e-cigarettes, are like the vaping. So anyway, we cannot recommend like like vaping as an alternative to the conventional smoking. So it is better that like any form of tobacco inhalation, or any form of like when we say tobacco, it doesn't mean that it's only smoking tobacco or like inhaling tobacco. It also says that like other products like tobacco chewing, or that also has to be avoided.
Yes. And can you believe this? Just this morning, the BBC has reported that a legal loophole, and again, this is why, governments have to pay attention, a legal loophole in the UK that allows retailers to give free vape samples to children. I mean, you wouldn't believe that this exists, but it's set to be closed under government plans to curb their use among young adults. So again, the marketing around vaping has been trying to demonstrate that, oh, this is cool, this is acceptable. It's very much what they used to do with cigarettes back in the day, but it has changed, with all these social media platforms. It's so much easier for children to now be exposed to it. But the new crackdown on vape marketing would prevent the unacceptable targeting of children and teens. And this is according, again, to the UK Prime Minister, Rishi Sunak, where he says that there's been a review into the rules around the sale of what's considered nicotine-free products, because, again, they are labeled as nicotine-free, to children and young adults under the age of 18. So, they have said, the Labour Party has said that the announcement is a baby step and urgent action is needed. And according to a recent BBC investigation, illegal vapes were confiscated from school pupils, contained, and this is the craziness now, is they actually contain far higher levels of lead, nickel, and chromium than deemed safe. And the Prime Minister said that he was shocked by the findings. And now they're trying to move very, very quickly to tackle this issue of children having access to vapes and people being able to give away free samples. I mean, you think this is something out of a fictional novel, but this is actually what was happening. And they're going to be levying fines on shops that are selling illicit vapes. And by tightening the law, they said that they hope to make it easier for local trading standard officials to issue on-the-spot fines and to fix penalty notices to shops who sell vapes to underage children. So really shocking that this is happening. But again, they're trying to now get this under control. Unbelievable. Vaping among, they said that there's a rise in vaping among children 11 to 17 years old from 7.7% in 2022, now up to 11.6% thus far in 2023. And this was according to some surveys done in the UK.
Definitely, Sandy. When you actually look at the flavors as well, right?
Yes,
cotton candy and bubble gum, and you can tell even from the flavors which
the brightly colored
they're,
vapes. They're designing the packaging and the coloring of the vapes to be colorful, and it's just unbelievable.
It looks like cereal, right? Like the marketing you would have for cereal is the same. The same marketers have gotten into the vape the vape market. Sorry, Doc. I think I cut you off.
Yes.
What I was saying, is when compared to the Eastern Asian countries, so the vaping and e-cigarettes are I think it's more popular on the Western world. So because I think, as you said, because they're promoting that heavily, and also as as it's already told, coming with, I mean, they're branding it, and they think they're taking different flavors, and it's kind of so I think we should not promote that as an alternative. No way it is good or better than a conventional smoking. So definitely the promotional activities, we have to cut it down, and also we have to look into the marketing, and that's what definitely it's a policy issue. So
and lead. I mean, they actually put lead in these e-cigarettes. That's unbelievable.
Yeah, that's what the way the vapors are produced. So that itself is not good, because process again it forms many carcinogens, as you said. So that's why vaping is, we cannot say that it's a safe mode of inhaling the tobacco.
Sandy, do you mind if I jump in?
Yes, absolutely.
So a few things. We recently we went to a local school here in Cayman. I won't say which one, and we did a presentation about vaping. 2 points of the presentation made the students in the room so shocked, their jaws dropped.
Oh.
First point was the point that you just talked about, that these vaping devices have been, when independent studies are done, they're found to have lead, mercury, and other dangerous metals. One of the students in the class said, wait, lead, isn't that bad for you? The answer is yes. And when they said, oh, well, wait a minute, if it's so bad for you, why is it legal? So the students' perspective really was that no matter where they are, they felt like they really felt like they were protected, that it wouldn't be legal if it were really bad for you, until they realized that it's not regulated. And so they can, the manufacturers can put anything they want on the outside of the packaging. They can say it contains juice and rainbows and sunshine, but it really contains lots of other dangerous things as well. Another thing is that that in Cayman, you know, we all have a lot of no smoking laws. There are regulations that surround that in public spaces and inside. And we just have to make sure that we encourage the Cayman government and all of the companies to enforce that and make sure that they include vaping is a kind of smoking. So if you already have a no smoking policy, that includes vaping. And so I would hope that lots of emails will go out today in companies saying, hey, by the way, no smoking inside. That also means no vaping. And I think you might find out who your vapors are in the company when you do. And the last thing is that when we were at a school after the presentation that was done locally, at the end, I asked the students who were 16 to raise their hand if they knew somebody who they personally knew, because I didn't want them to have to out themselves, if they knew somebody who had been vaping from the time they were 14. And almost every hand in the room went up, and I kept backing the age down, 14, 13, 12, 11, and we got down to 8 years old. And these are not statistics from the UK or abstract things from the US. This is right here in the community we call home. And when I questioned this young man, I said, wait a minute, you actually know someone who has been vaping or is actively vaping at 8 years old? And he chuckled and said, yeah, a lot of them, and the rest of the kids were nodding. We were horrified. So while we think that this is a teenage problem, it actually does go back to even younger kids than teenagers. The single-digit kids are being impacted as well. And the problem is they think it's safe.
Wow. So we've got Harry here. We know that he's got some time restraints this morning. So let's go ahead and bring Harry into the conversation. I see you shaking your head in disbelief, Harry, at some of this information. We know that you were a former vapor and smoker, or just vapor?
Both. Yeah, I started with smoking. And then when I moved to the island, it was such a big thing. I started vaping here as well. But it is just so scary hearing a lot of these facts, because something to take into account as well when you're vaping compared to a cigarette is the nicotine content is going to be much higher in a lot of these disposable vapes they're selling. And so you are inherently then becoming more addicted to the nicotine within that product, which is therefore going to make it harder to quit. When you do go to it, you're going to be using it more often because your baseline nicotine levels are going to be dropping down more and more. So to hear that their target audience, which is younger kids, because, you know, why target them at the older generation when if they start at kids now, they'll have customers for life kind of thing.
Exactly.
It is very, very worrying. But I took up the same as anybody else. I took up vaping because, well, everybody who's a smoker realistically knows it's not great for you. No smoker is actually going to say that this is doing me any favors. But I moved over to vaping because I honestly believed that this was a great, healthy alternative, which wasn't going to cause any issues, and it was branded as a great way to get off smoking. And you know that Yeah, it it's just another way of nicotine getting into your system, but a much higher dose. And with a lot of these vapes as well, which are being imported from all over the world, they're so quick to hit the market. You don't know what kind of quality checks they're having. There's not like there's a fully certified board which is reviewing all of these products. It's such a new product to market as well. The health effects long term are unknown, and especially like where these items are coming from, which you're then inhaling every day.
Wow. So how long were you a smoker for? How long did you smoke for?
I would have been about 10 years. I would have started in university. I'm 28 now, so I would have started when I was about 18. But then only really vaped for about a year year and a bit since moving to the island.
Yeah, and I'm sure you found vaping also socially more acceptable because you can almost do it like everywhere, right? I would be surprised if people are sitting in church vaping. Like honestly, it's that easy.
It's actually you're completely right. When I was at home in the UK, smoking kind of was a more sociable thing where people would go out. But I did find that when I was here, it wasn't as big. Smoking kind of thing, and going outside. I guess you're outside a lot of the time anyway, but the vapes here were so socially acceptable, and it was also, you'd like say to somebody else, "Oh, what flavor have you got?" That was also a massive topic of conversation. If you saw somebody else who maybe had the same vape as yourself as well, you would just go, "Oh, there we go, we've got the same one." But yeah, there is definitely a huge social aspect to it.
Right. So lots of side effects as it relates to vaping. Somebody was just asking, doctor, if you can talk about the lung implications as a pulmonologist. What does it actually do to the lungs?
See, that's what. So any kind of toxin substance we are inhaling, so that will affect the mucosal lining. So the mucosal lining starts from the oral cavity, and from there going down to the vocal cords and trachea and the lungs. So when we say that like the cancer, so it can cause cancer of the mouth, it can cause cancer of the vocal cord, the oropharynx, and the lungs. So that's how it affects. And as I already told you before, like it's not only the lung cancer. So lung cancer, what I can say, it is like lung cancer is the biggest thing which appears. Otherwise, it is affecting in other way also. Like as I told you, COPD is the leading cause for death and disability. So. In that COPD, what happens, like patient will have chronic cough, and that will lead to shortness of breath, and also there is poor quality of life because of these disabilities. So and another thing is it is a chronic disease. This chronic disease, like affect them to have a normal life, and also to maintain the quality, and also it will affect at their work, because of their they cannot perform as the normal people. So this is one thing. So and also it can affect the heart, like there is more chance of getting infarcts we say it as MI. So and also it can affect brain, causing stroke, and also it can lead to hypertension. It can also cause lead to diabetes. And one more thing is that, like when we smoke this, so when it damages the local mucosal lining, there is a chance that they frequently catch respiratory infections, and they can catch pneumonias. So with this, again and again, it will lead to going to the hospital, and cutting down the what do you say the more absence in the work, and again it leads to the performance. And also if we see economically also, it is affecting the society because of this. And so that's how I can say that, like, the smoking affects the lung. So and so this, like, usually this we will not know, because when because why I'm insisting this is, we say lung cancer and we do a CT scan and or maybe X-ray, we will get to know if there is any lesion, right? But COPD is one thing we will not get to know when with the imaging. Like when we do a chest X-ray or when we do a CT, so it can look as if it is a normal thing. But for this, we'll have to perform a PFT, that is like a spirometric test that we do. So when we do that, we usually people get to know, because otherwise they think that they are normal. But unless when we do the PFT, then only they realize that, like, they have a problem, or they have a reduced lung capacity. So any sort of smoking or vaping, that will affect the mucosal lining and cause airway obstruction. So this is the most common thing which will happen.
Right. So we're looking at things like asthma, and even in kids, teens, and young adults, it actually impacts their brain development because of the nicotine. So very, very dangerous. And apparently some pregnant women might think it's a good idea to smoke, or to vape, which is unbelievable. But again, something that's going to impact a baby's brain and lung development, and may even impact other organs as well. So not a good idea. So tell us, Harry, a little bit about how you then came to the decision, really, that you wanted to quit. What was it that woke you up one day?
I think that, to quit nicotine use altogether, when I came to the island in November 2021, and about a week into being here, I saw the advertisements for the half marathon in December. So I thought, oh, great, this is going to be a phenomenal chance to like quit smoking. I'll train every day. I'll run every day. I won't smoke every day. And when I finish it, I'll see how it goes then. So I did the 4 week, I think it was 4 weeks before the race, did the 4 weeks and didn't smoke at all. I think I occasionally might have used a vape, but at that point I didn't really know how bad the effects were. But either way, I hadn't smoked at that time. And I did the race, and then straight away after the race started smoking again. I just gone that 4 weeks, no problem at all. And then as soon as it was over, I did it again. And at that point, I think something clicked. You don't need it, do you? If you've just gone for, it's not food, it's not water, it's not something your body actually needs. And to be honest, I think I was pretty much happier for the 4 weeks while I wasn't doing it as well. But then after that, after the race had gone by, I thought, oh, it's back to normal then, it's free game. So I think that kind of twigged it for me that I need to definitely get some help and stop.
But isn't that amazing that you had a goal in mind and you were able to pretty much quit cold turkey for that period of time, for 4 weeks, and then you picked it right back up after the race was finished?
I think that's one of the. So I tried to quit smoking quite a few times before in the UK. I think I stopped once for 2 weeks because somebody bet me you couldn't stop for 2 weeks. It's two different things. Stopping for a certain amount of time, or the idea of stopping forever. The idea of stopping forever, if somebody is a smoker, is very intimidating, very scary, because that's a big commitment. You are making a big change, and it's something which people are scared about this. But I think, especially with the help of the class, when you shift your mindset about something, you're not really giving up something. You're relieved that you're no longer a prisoner to something. And then once you shift that mindset, and then you have the information and the tools, giving up is definitely a lot easier.
Wow.
So if I had to add to that, so as is like we have to know why quitting smoking becomes challenging. It's not easy if someone is smoking a long time. To quit smoking is not easy, because there are three implications in that. There is physical addiction. So the nicotine which we consume, so it will influence the brain. There is a center called reward center So every time they smoke, they get that pleasure, and they gain that positivity. So that's why they think that, like, when they smoke, it can increase their performance. That's how it starts. So and it is an addictive substance, nicotine. So then there is dependency. So they depend on this nicotine. So every time they have to perform, they keep smoking. So, and it is not easy to quit smoking because of the because of the effect it causes in the brain. And the second thing is there is emotional psychological connections. So every smoker, you ask them, they say that, like, when they smoke, it helps them relax. Or maybe they also say that, like, smoking isn't really harmful because they think that it is benefiting them. And the third one is behavioral and social connections. So, like, these all because of the circle they have. So like the friends who smoke, so if someone is going to the circle, so there is a more chance that, like, they continue smoking. Or if they have a family in where the smoking is common, so then there is a tendency that, like, the children also start smoking. So that's how it, like, quitting smoking is not at all easy. So they have to cross these barriers if someone has to quit smoking, particularly if they are smoking for a long time and if they are addictive to the smoking. So these are the barriers they are going to face.
What was the hardest part for you, Harry, in sort of this journey to quit smoking?
I think it's definitely the first week, I would say, or the first week, 2 weeks is definitely the hardest part. You're extremely irritable. You're obviously going through withdrawal at that stage. And it's so easy. The easy way out would just to be go back to the shop and buy a vape or buy a cigarette and put yourself in a position where that would be the easy way out, wouldn't it? And the hard way out is to just stick with it, because you're not just sticking with it, like we were saying, for X amount of time, you're sticking with that forever. But I think what you can't really comprehend in your brain in that first week is, because it is awful, you think that that's what it's going to be like forever. You think, oh, this is what I'm going to be going through. And I think that must be why so many people don't manage to quit. You can't quite twig that. You can't look forward in a month where it's something like now. It's not a problem at all. I'm so much more active. I'm so much more healthy. You were saying before that you're having it, and you're having a small amount of, like, dopamine, serotonin release, aren't you? Which kind of like takes away from other fantastic things in life. When you haven't got that artificial dopamine release, all of a sudden everything else in the world is more colorful. That's definitely something which is later down the end, later stages. But to begin with, yeah, it's definitely the withdrawals, irritability. I started eating absolutely everything in sight, so the cupboards were bare very quickly. It's going to be different for everybody. But going back to the point before, did you say there was 3 reasons? The second one, I think you said, was about people are unaware. These courses, because what it did show was it showed me all of the clear information. And when you do have, it's very it's easy to touch yourself and quit what I want. When you are given the strictly very straight, it's very hard to then tell yourself these lies, because you can really see the effects of what you're doing to yourself up close, and you're the only person doing it to you. So when you kind of you see it, you do the moment where you think, do I want to be doing this to myself? And then you just got to think of that, and that feeling, that emotion is what will push you through that first week or first 2 weeks. But then after that, the addiction really kind of has faded, like physical addiction for me, at least. I can't talk for everybody. And then it was just a mental game. I know another point you mentioned was about if you've got social circles. I won't name names. Go into one small case study of somebody in the class which I was in, and he would go on boats on the weekend, and if he was on a boat, all of his pals would smoke. And then he would just be culprit of saying yes when they offered it. He wouldn't even always have his own. They would just offer him one, and he would say yes. Taking the right approach to situations can definitely help conquer those things, because just because everybody else is doing something doesn't mean you have to do it. If you approach the situation correctly, I think a few things he did was, first he told them all, look, this is what I'm doing. I've gone to a class. I'm not smoking. It'd be great if you kind of didn't offer me one. And you know what? Most people, 9 out of 10, they're going to be respectful, aren't they? And they're going to, maybe even turn away or not be so in front of you when they're doing it, especially if they can see that you're making a step towards it. Well, if they are your real friends, that's something they would be doing. If they so there's lots of things you can do combined. It's not necessarily the easiest thing to do in the world. It is tricky, but it's the satisfaction and feeling that you have when you are free of it is definitely worth all of it.
So triggers, knowing how to deal with those is a key part in maintaining, I guess, just like any, because it's an addiction, right? So like any situation where you have an addiction, for some people, stress might be a trigger. It might be, like you said, the environment. So the friends that you're hanging out with, if you go into like a bar or whatever, you might then want to go outside and have a cig, in the back alley or whatever. So knowing what your individual triggers are and having a plan for how to address it.
Definitely.
So that definitely helps.
Yeah, I think there's lots of things you can do to counteract these triggers, to definitely aid them. I mean, you could probably just try and ignore them. That might work for some people, but slight alternatives would be good. There was another person in our class who always thought it was great to have a stress ball on hand, because it's the motion as well, which you're kind of used to. You're used to whether you're rolling or lighting or flicking ash out. So doing something with your hands, like a stress ball, something which is only going to be positive, is quite a good one. Or another thing they gave us a lot of with toothpicks. That was another one which I found quite useful as well. If you had a toothpick, there's lots of ways to, everybody's got different triggers, of course. So you kind of talk about them together and discuss, what could be useful. I know that I changed a lot of my routine would definitely be have coffee in the morning, and have a vape or have a cigarette. And I just changed how I actually made the coffee. And one of the slightest change in the world kind of made me think, oh, this is new environment now. This is something different. This is what we do now, and that definitely helped.
All right, so we see some of the benefits of quitting from your perspective, Harry. What have been, sort of the top benefits for you?
I think the satisfaction of knowing you've quit is one of the happiest things. Like, that's a phenomenal feeling, because everybody says, oh, it's obviously so hard. So knowing that you have it is great. And then being able to come on shows like this and talk about it and try and help others, that's a fantastic feeling. Going through them, there is so many. A huge one for a lot of people is a financial benefit. That's a great one. It's a very expensive habit to have, especially if you're stuck in it. It's not like you can just pick it up and have weeks on or weeks off. But my health, I've noticed, is just really improved. I've gotten back into running, and I've been doing really well in the gym, so that's really been helping. And I've like my overall well-being. I can put a reason to why is that my overall well-being and health and feelings of general positive mood have returned so much more since quitting. So yeah.
Wow, fantastic.
If I have to add to that, to put it properly, certainly there are many benefits in quitting smoking, and this is one of the way to tell if someone is willing to quit. When we tell them the benefits of smoking, definitely they are going to quit. So I want to list the benefits here. So,
Mhm.
there are benefits. So the health benefits, like, if you will be fascinated to hear this. Like, the times we start quitting. So the benefit, like, you get the positive effects immediately. Like,
Mhm.
within 20 minutes of quitting smoking, like, your heart rate and blood pressure drop.
Wow.
And in 12 hours, the carbon monoxide level in the body becomes normal. Otherwise, it would have been higher. And in 2 to 12 weeks, your circulation improves and your lung function increases.
Mm.
And in 1 to 9 months, coughing, shortness of breath decrease. And in 1 year, your risk of coronary heart disease is about that half of a smoker.
Mhm.
So that's how we benefit. And over 5 years, your stroke risk is reduced to that of a non-smoker.
Mhm.
That is 15 years after quitting.
Mm.
Like in 10 years, your risk of lung cancer falls to about half that of a smoker, and your risk of cancer of mouth, throat, esophagus, bladder, cervix, and pancreas decrease. So it can affect all of the organs, and you will get benefited with that. And in 15 years, the risk of coronary heart disease is that of a non-smokers. So that's how it helps. And also one more thing, so at about 30 years, if someone quits at about 30 years, he would gain almost 10 years of his life expectancy,
Mhm.
10-year bonus. If they quit at about 40 years, 9 years of life expectancy, and 50 years, about 6 years, and 60 years, about 3 years. So definitely at any point of time, if we are quitting smoking, it is adding to our life expectancy. That is very, very important. And as he already told, like, economic benefits. So we are saving so much of money which we are spending on this smoking, and
Mhm.
also social relationship. Like,
Yes.
someone can definitely have a bad relationship because of smoking. So
Mm.
definitely their personal and professional relationship can improve by quitting smoking.
Yes.
So these are all definitely the certain benefits that we
And the
have.
economic benefits as well is not just the money that you save in terms of having to buy these products, but it's also the money you're going to save in healthcare. Not
Right.
getting sick, not
Definitely.
having asthma and other things that have an association to smoking and vaping, not getting cancers that can be extremely expensive to
Yeah.
treat, and having to go through that life altering ordeal as well. You can't put a price tag on your health, obviously, but there are financial costs to not just individuals but communities, governments, insurance companies. It's one of the most preventable. If everybody in the world just quit smoking, I don't know how many billions of dollars we would save in healthcare, but I do know that it's substantial. And it's something that we should continue to advocate for and to push for, because everybody complains about the rising cost of healthcare, but we don't recognize there are things that we do as individuals that contribute to that rising cost. And if we do our part, we can help to certainly alleviate that. 936-2626 is the telephone number. If any of you call in, we're going to start to wrap things up. If you'd like to call in, we're going to start to wrap things up a little bit. So what can people do, Jennifer, if they're interested in the a smoking program? So this is the Freedom from Smoking program that's offered at Health City Cayman Islands. I should mention that there are other facilities on the island that offer smoking cessation programs as well. So wherever you need to go, just go and get it done. But this one is conveniently located at the club in Cricket Square. So can you give us some details then about how people can get some information if they're interested in stopping smoking?
Yes, thank you for the opportunity to talk about it, because it's really important for the community. So Health City, as a public health care kind of initiative, is providing these classes free. It's called Freedom from Smoking. And what we're doing is, when we find a cluster of people, let's say 5 people contact us today from West Bay by emailing us at stopsmoking@healthcity.ky. If we get 5 people or 6 people who say, hey, I'm in West Bay, another person says I'm in West Bay, what we'll do is we'll start a class in West Bay. We have a church that's in that area who has said that we could use their church hall space. The class will be free for people who attend, and Health City will provide the materials. There's a booklet, there's there's a workbook, there's all kinds of information that is helpful to the people who participate. The class is 6 weeks long, and 7 weeks long, and we meet once a week. With a trained facilitator. Shamari mentioned that we have a doctor now who is a trained facilitator in the Freedom from Smoking program. She also speaks Spanish, so we could do a Spanish language class. We have other people in the community who have become volunteers who are now facilitators for the Freedom from Smoking program that could lead a class. We want to make sure that we get this information out to the community, because the fewer smokers we have in the community, the healthier our whole community is going to be. So all people have to do is email stopsmoking@healthcity.ky, and we will put together a class. And, one thing I would encourage people to consider, if they're listening to this and they think, I really should try to quit. Like Carrie mentioned, most people who try to quit or who finally quit have tried a lot of times. In this course, we call that practice quitting. This course is really positive. No one is going to shame you. No one is going to embarrass you. If you come to the first information class, you're just going to get information. You don't have to worry that people are going to call you and relentlessly hound you to come back. This is about you. This is about providing the help that you need and the support that you want in order to make a big change. This is not an easy thing to do, but it is something you can do with the right kind of support. So if someone is listening and wants to try to quit smoking, this is a really good opportunity. It's the first time something that this particular class is available in the community, and it has helped 40 million people worldwide quit smoking. So we know it works.
Wow, that's fantastic. Harry, people might be listening to this and maybe they're hesitating to think, next week comes. Next week, they keep putting it off. What would you say to them about that?
I was definitely in that boat, to be fair. I got sent the course by a friend, and I was kind of umming and ahhing about it, but it was right next to where I work, to be fair, so everything was in line. But I think a huge part of going to the course, I guess, which was something I didn't really want to do, was kind of the first step is then just admitting that what you have is probably a bit of an issue. Everybody says that I can kind of quit whenever I want and stuff. But, those are just the things we tell ourselves. But making the very first step and just saying, maybe I need to make some changes is a scary step for most people. But then that's the scariest one. As soon as you do that and go, everything's fine. Everything in the class was very laid back. You could share as much as you want to, or you could just kind of go and listen to others. It's a very low pressure environment. And I mean, the other thing is you really don't have anything to lose. It's a free class. If you go to the first one and it's really not for you, there's absolutely no pressure to go to the second one. At the end of the day, you're only doing it for yourself. You're not doing it for anybody else. Unless you're going for yourself, you might not, see through the whole program. So if it does sound like it is for you and it's something which you'd be interested in, it is very friendly. Like there's no, you're not going to be getting calls up. And then I've also made some great friends out of it, which we still, stay in touch and have a group chat. It was a really great class. I'd really advocate it. Yeah.
Yeah, wonderful. All right. So how long have you been smoke-free now?
So I have been smoke-free now today, 5 months.
Wonderful. Congratulations.
Nicotine, all nicotine substances, vapes and cigarettes. Yeah. 5 months.
Yeah, fantastic. Congratulations. I think we need to find a virtual applaud button for that. Hold on. Where is it? There we go. Yay! Awesome. So Alejandro says, congrats. It's a mindset. It's also a physical addiction. I mean, you talk about, when you quit, how you kind of substituted it for maybe eating a little bit too much in the initial stages. And we know that there is this kind of oral fixation habit that goes along with it. I remember when I was in university, there was a guy who worked in the newsroom. He was a heavy smoker and he decided to quit, and he did quit, but he picked up his replacement habit was drinking Mountain Dew. So he'd bring the big 2-liter thing of Mountain Dew, and then he would pop sunflower seeds, which I thought was always like a weird combination. But he would eat a lot of sunflower seeds and Mountain Dew like all day long. So I think because you get used to doing something with your hands, you've got to kind of retrain the brain on how to do something else. Siobhan says that she knows someone who tried to quit smoking, and they've gone 11 times with trying and no success yet. So, Jennifer, you talked about this practice quitting. How common?
That's common. Yeah, they say that it takes the average person 8 to 11 times to actually get to the point where they are tobacco free. It's an easy thing to slip back into. And another thing that we haven't discussed is the people that their motivations for quitting. I was the facilitator in the class that Harry attended. And I, even as the facilitator, was very surprised to learn how varied the motivations were. Some people in the class said they wanted to do it for their own health. Other people said they were embarrassed to smoke in front of their children. Other people said they felt like they looked weak in front of others, that they have this addiction that they didn't really know that they were developing, and now they have it and they can't quit, and it's embarrassing for them. Other people say that the health benefits or the risks and all those things didn't impact their thinking at all. For them, it was the financial aspect. When they realized how much they were spending, they said, "Oh, I'd rather take a nice vacation. Okay, so I'll just stop. That's it. I'm not going to do this anymore." There's an emotional component. Someone in the class talked about how the only reason he really smoked was the only time he really smoked was when he realized it's when he was lonely. It wasn't stress. It wasn't celebratory like some other people. When he felt lonely in the morning, drinking his coffee, somebody else said, "Oh, whenever he had alcohol." Those two things go together.
Yeah.
And so many different habits and associations and psychological reasons. Some people said, "Oh, I do have a great day at work and I celebrate with cigarettes in the car on the way home." If you're somebody who has smoked, let's say, a pack a day for a year, 10 years, think about how many times you've gone like this. You have to practice for a long time to make that a habit. So it makes sense that you would have to practice for a long time to change that habit. And in what we call the quit kit, we provided straws, toothpicks, lollipops, pretzel sticks.
Can I just pause you, Jennifer, for one quick second? I know Harry had a hard stop at 8:30. So Harry, we just want to again thank you for coming on the program and for sharing your experience and your journey to smoking cessation and continued success with that. And perhaps in a year, you'll come back and tell us how it's still going for you.
Oh, fantastic. Sounds brilliant.
All right.
Thanks, Harry.
Okay. Thank you very much for having me, guys. Take care.
Thank you, everyone. Yeah.
All right, folks. So, Jennifer, sorry to have interrupted you.
Okay. Harry's become one of my besties now from the class. The class became like it was an amazing support group for these people. They were all so different, but it really helped all of them to be able to hear what the other was going through. And having that little quit kit of little things that you could put in your mouth, or the stress ball that you could squeeze, and having other things like that to provide a distraction or an avoidance, and the WhatsApp group so that they could all talk to each other during the day, made a big difference. In this class, this is not a class that just talks about how you can quit smoking. This is a class that you join because you're committed. You're ready to try to quit. And so by the fourth class, everybody quits together. And then
practical things that they can, Alejandro talked about alternatives. You're giving them practical or alternatives that they can utilize. So Ms. Sue says, I stopped smoking 13 years ago, smoked for many years too. Patches helped me. I did it to help my hubby stop smoking, which he couldn't do in the end, only cut back a lot. I was amazed I could do it, and I never liked vapes. So congratulations. Again, Ms. Sue, you've added years to your life by making that decision. Alejandro says that he's a smoker. He says, I moderated my smoking habit. Sometimes I smoke 10 cigarettes within one day and stopped completely until maybe 2 or 3 months. And he began smoking in 2010. So yeah, 2010, we're now in 2023. So he's been smoking for a minute. Alejandro, maybe reach out to Stop Smoking at healthcity.ky to find out, what options are available to you.
I just saw somebody's comments pop up that said, oh, maybe it's okay because none of us are perfect. Of course, that's true. None of us are perfect. I'm drinking my coffee. I might have a Coca-Cola in the afternoon. That's bad. I work in a hospital. I know better. And that's true. Nobody's perfect. And this isn't about shaming anybody. This is about helping people who want to do something better for them, for themselves. So if you are someone who is interested in finding out more because you've tried before, maybe you've tried and you didn't really tell people, a lot of people confessed in this class that, oh, I always tell myself, that's it, Monday morning, I'm not smoking anymore. And then by Friday, they say, that's it, this weekend, I'm not smoking. We're starting Sunday. But they keep making those promises to themselves. If you've done that a lot and you feel like, you know what, I really am ready to try something different, this is the class for you. And I'll go ahead and preempt some people from contacting me by email, because people are going to email me, this happens every time, and say, hey, I need you to call my husband or call my wife or call my child and convince them to stop smoking. I don't have that kind of power. Maybe the doctor does, but I don't. So if somebody wants to quit smoking, they're ready to give this a try. This is a great class.
They have to want to do. Yeah. All right. We have a caller in the line. Good morning, caller. Welcome to the program.
Yeah. Good morning.
Morning, Alejandro.
I would say, it's not that I wouldn't like to participate in those things, but it's just sometimes that's where my comfort is, like when you have a child, they have a studio or something like that. I'm not saying that I'm acting like a child now, It's just, this is my studio, like this is something that I like to do. I like to sit down and drink in the night by themselves. And I guess this is just the way that I like to do it. I've moderated it because since 2010, I've been smoking. Like I said, I was 18 when I was in school. So I started smoking from I was in school. And I just think it's just a way of escaping reality sometimes. If you think about tobacco, what it can do to you, and then you just think about what marijuana can do to you, and then think about what this vapes can do to you. So then it alters your mind as well, just like alcohol. And I prefer to be like this other than an alcoholic. Trust me, alcohol is not a good thing. Addiction and all those things. I would sacrifice that any day. So cigarettes and weed, that's my thing.
All right, Alejandro, thank you very much.
There's nothing about the health. I'm all about the health and thing. This is why I don't smoke cigarettes every day.
Okay. All right, we appreciate it. The question is, how can you support World No Tobacco Day? Here are some tips: becoming aware, quitting smoking, tobacco use, or helping others to quit. Educate others, including family members, friends, and people in your community. Improved social life. Plant some vegetables. So again, the theme this year is focused around food, but plant some vegetables like tomatoes and peppers. Promote better mental health. We see that a lot of people smoke because of stress and mental health issues. Alejandro just kind of basically said he's substituting one addictive habit for another. So his choice is not alcohol, but it's going to be nicotine and cigarettes. Both, if they're an addiction, can kill you, obviously, and can have serious long-time implications on your health. How many people, Jennifer, when people come to the smoking program, how many people say that their kids, like having children, motivates them to make a change? Because I would think that that would be a huge motivator, even more than even being concerned about your own health. When you see potentially what you're exposing your children to, secondhand, third-hand smoke, and also the habit, more importantly, of seeing you do something that you know, they're much more likely to pick up. If they witness that on a regular basis, they're much more likely to become smokers, and then the habit goes from one generation to the next.
Yeah, that's a great question. Every single person had a completely different motivation. In this particular group, there was only one person who had children, and that person said when the children were younger, he could hide it from them. But now he's involved in picking the kids up and dropping them off at school and back and forth. And so he would never smoke in front of the kids or while they were in the car, but it became like a reward to himself that he would tell himself, oh, it's okay, I can smoke after they get out of the car, So it became more of a timing and reward system that he introduced to himself than really a conscious effort to try to stop. Not unlike what Harry was talking about. He knew he quit smoking for a while because he knew it was short term. He hadn't made the complete decision that this is something I'm not going to do anymore. And there are positive. One of the things that is discussed in the class is what motivates you, and what is a good substitute for you. One person, the person who said that he did this when he felt lonely, realized that he needed to get out more and socialize more. And so started, instead of smoking a lot on a Sunday afternoon because it was a relaxing time, decided to go for a swim, because you can't smoke and swim at the same time.
Right.
The other thing that people said was in the morning, first thing they did was they woke up and they used that nervous energy to go for a walk. Or they decided that they were going to start taking their neighbor's dog for a walk, like making a commitment to do something different. Helped them a lot. So substituting not one addiction for another, but substituting a different activity that made sense to you. Or to each person, it's not a cookie cutter. It's not do A, B, and C. It's like a support group. You really have to think through, what are you doing and why are you doing it? How do you feel? And figure out what is going to motivate you to make the mental and physical shift. And if you need, and some people, complain about, oh, what if I gain weight? Well, if you gain 5 or 10 pounds in the first couple of weeks when you're quitting smoking, of course, that's something that you're going to be able to deal with for the rest of your life. You can work off that 5 or 10 pounds. Focus first on doing the quitting, and then figure out how to lose that 5 or 10 pounds. And if you have a lollipop in your mouth all the time, or a toothpick in your mouth all the time for about 2 weeks, that's going to be okay. You can switch that habit too.
Yep. Okay, wonderful. All right, folks. So again, you can contact Jennifer and the team at Health City Cayman Islands. Stop smoking at healthcity.ky. This is a good initiative. I think the key for governments and policymakers is to get young people to never start smoking. That's it, really. If you never start smoking, that you're going to have to kick. So encourage, young people to never pick up the habit, and I think it just becomes that much easier. All right. So thank you. We've had Jennifer Weber, Dr. Harsha, and Shamari Scott, as well as Harry, joining us from Cayman Islands Health City. Harry, of course, has gone through the program, so he could speak firsthand on how he found the program. It has worked for him 5 months in. We wish him continued success. And thanks to the wonderful team at Health City Cayman Islands for always bringing very topical and engaging issues to the forefront. And
Sandy, just because we made a comment in regards to, the fact that e-cigarettes and such is smoking, so establishments could go ahead and say no. I just want to state that I looked at the act, right? I don't want somebody to say Health City said, right?
Yes.
And it's called the Tobacco Act, first of all. And then in 2008, a lot of the terminology in it speaks to tobacco.
Yes.
as well as from a vaping perspective, the actual technique isn't using smoke, it's using vapes. So even when it comes to smoking, I can see the lawyers bringing out bringing out their knives to
Yes.
say that actually, if you're going to use the Tobacco Act 2008, you can't, because vaping actually doesn't meet that criteria, which is probably why in the UK they had to add additional components to cover vaping, because when we would have done the acts prior to 2008, but would have been tabled in 2008, we wouldn't have foreseen vaping at that point in time becoming so predominant and
Yes.
flowing throughout the community. So just want to state that we probably, I'm sure any establishment can make certain rules for their establishment.
Yes.
Whether or not they can use that law to say that no, you can't do that here because of this law is something I'm not sure about, but I'm sure the legislators and the minister, who seems to listen from time to time, will definitely be having a look at it to see whether or not they need to make any additions to get it across the board.
Yep, for sure. All right. Thanks very much. Appreciate it. Okay, guys, have a fantastic day.
Thank you.
All right. We actually have a few videos that I'm going to share with you guys. Doja Cat, I guess she's a singer. She actually had to quit vaping because it was causing her a very severe health concern. So check this one out. I thought that this was super interesting.
On tour after this with The Weeknd, so that'll be great.
Yeah.
You will be going out on tour, correct?
Yes, I will.
Okay.
Yes.
What he's trying to say is
tell everybody here.
It's gonna happen. Yes, North America, I'm coming.
You heard Doja telling ET at the Grammys last month that she will be heading out on tour with The Weeknd.
Oh my God. I'm very excited. I'm very, very excited.
But now she may need to change those plans after suffering a health scare. The 26-year-old musician shared on Twitter Thursday that she had surgery on her left tonsil, which had an abscess in it. Quote, "My whole throat is so I might have some bad news for y'all coming soon." Some fans speculate that Doja's drinking and vaping at the Billboard Music Awards over the weekend is to blame.
The moment your name was called, you grabbed your drink, you chugged it, headed to the stage. What was going through your mind?
I was shocked, and I ran up. I was like, I need something, because I feel like my first speech was flat a little bit, so I don't know. Yeah, it was great. It was amazing.
But she shut down that theory, tweeting that her tonsils got infected before the award show. Doja says she was taking antibiotics but forgot about them, and after a long day of drinking wine and vaping, she got a nasty-ass growth on her tonsil and had to get surgery. The rapper describes the procedure in detail. She says the painful process made her cry for hours, but I'm okay.
Yeah, pray to God.
Doja's fans flooded her with tweets, encouraging her to get rid of her vape pen, but she says it's simply not that easy. Quote, "Throwing them away just instills panic. I'm addicted, but I'm not weak. I'ma go cold turkey for now, but hopefully my brain doesn't need it at all by then." So f*** out of here with that throw it away then, queen. That doesn't help anybody, and it just sounds condescending to anybody who's actually struggling with nicotine addiction. I've tried all that throw it away before, doesn't work. Looks like fans changed their tune because just minutes later, the singer tweeted that she was near tears after reading so many supportive and reassuring messages.
Thank you so much.
While we continue to send good healing energy Doja's way, she certainly has a lot of impressive accomplishments to celebrate.
All right, folks. So, everybody struggles with something. Doja Cat, obviously, is saying how she was struggling with addiction to nicotine and addiction to the vaping, her vaping pen as well. Here's another interesting video that I've come across recently, specific in relation to vaping, because I think this is an emerging area of concern. We saw over years that there'd been a decrease in the number of our young children, young people that were smoking and getting addicted to traditional cigarettes, but vaping has really taken over as something very, very popular. And unfortunately, the popularity of it means that now there's an uptake in young people who are picking up this vaping habit. We heard here in the Cayman Islands as young as 8 years old. I can't even imagine. I have a 6-year-old. That's like in 2 years, somebody's going to tell me that she's going to be picking up a vaping pen. Like, what on earth? Someone on WhatsApp said, where are the parents? So as usual, I don't know where the parents of these 8-year-olds or 11 years old or 12-year-olds are, but this is shocking. Have a look at this.
Vaping is more popular than ever. It's only been around since the mid-2000s, but more and more people are using e-cigarettes, particularly children. Young people are often attracted to vapes because of its bright packaging, appealing marketing, and sweet flavours like cola, cranberry, and bubblegum. But many scientists, experts, governments, and not to mention parents are worried.
We just don't know what's coming down the track, and we're seeing a lot of canaries in the coal mine.
Overall, they do cause harms. They cause addiction, they also cause seizures and loss of consciousness. They can cause poisoning and also lung injury.
Pro-vapers say e-cigarettes are a game changer to help people quit smoking.
And we should be encouraging smokers to switch from deadly cigarettes to less risky options, and in Australia that means vaping.
So what exactly does the science say about vaping, and how bad is it for you? Most vapes work in a similar way. A battery-operated device heats up a coil, which vaporizes a liquid that the user then inhales. E-liquids usually contain substances like water, propylene glycol, or vegetable glycerin, flavorings, and nicotine. And it's some of these ingredients that scientists are worried about. Let's start with glycerin, used for the vapor, and propylene glycol for the flavours to bind to. Outside of vaping, these substances are usually considered pretty harmless, but
in that process of heating the e-liquid, the propylene glycol and the glycerol, they break down and they change into other more toxic chemicals.
the other aspects scientists are concerned about are the flavours.
So a lot of these are sort of food additives that go into things like biscuits and cakes and that sort of thing. But they're also put into these e-liquids in a liquid form, which you then heat up and inhale. And that's a very different sort of way of being exposed to these chemicals as opposed to cooking it and then eating it.
So we have over 17,000 recorded different flavour combinations of vaping, and we have no idea what the consequences of that will be down the track.
Do you guys sell disposable vapes? No, we do not sell vapes because that is against the law, and we have nothing but respect for the judicial system. I'm not a cop. Oh, sweet. Yeah, no, of course we do. I'll give you this to flip through. This is our list of flavours.
Right now in Australia, e-cigarettes with nicotine are illegal to buy without a prescription. But a study found nicotine in 60% of the Australian-made e-liquids tested. Other research found nicotine in 1 in 10 vapes analysed. And nicotine is one of the most highly addictive substances we know of.
Time to quit vaping.
When you vape nicotine, it goes through your lungs, travels through your bloodstream and into your brain in seconds. Once nicotine reaches the reward pathways of the brain, it unlocks and attaches itself to receptors. This releases a pleasure molecule called dopamine, making you feel good for a short time. The more you use nicotine products, the more receptors are unlocked, making you crave more. As your body adapts, you need more nicotine to get the same effect, creating a tolerance.
Nicotine can affect the ability to concentrate, it can affect memory, it can affect mood, and it also means that people are in the cycle of addiction.
What flavour is this? That is so good! Okay, no, I think I'm addicted.
What complicates this even further is that more young people are vaping while their brains are still developing.
Principals of primary and high school students are continually telling me and my colleagues that vaping is their biggest behavioural challenge that they face in their schools.
8 teens were hospitalized with lung damage in the past month.
Locally, doctors say they've seen an increase in teens getting sick from vaping.
In 2019, doctors in the US started to see young patients who'd been vaping showing pneumonia-like symptoms.
Doctors say the 8 young people came to the hospital with extreme coughs, fatigue, even struggling to breathe.
The condition became known as EVALI, e-cigarette or vaping-associated lung injury. Symptoms include shortness of breath, coughing and chest pain, as well as nausea, stomach problems, fatigue, fever, and weight loss.
I remember asking them, like, is he going to recover from this? Like, I can't lose my son. I feel like people need to be aware that this can happen. And if sharing my story can help one person's life, then it's totally worth it.
Like so many things to do with e-cigarettes, scientists aren't exactly sure what causes the condition.
In a big development concerning vaping, it has been making people sick across the country, and now health experts may have some idea why. Turns out products with marijuana all had one chemical in common.
They've found a link with e-liquids, including vitamin E acetate, which is often used alongside THC, the chemical that creates the high from marijuana. The New York Times estimates in 3 years there's been more than 2,500 cases of EVALI, with 59 deaths in the US. In Australia, EVALI cases are extremely rare. Vitamin E acetate is one of a number of substances that can't be used in vapes here, but authorities say we still need to be cautious.
We have seen some episodes of lung injury in Australia that's not seem to be related to THC, and we also know that 1 in 8 cases of that EVALI or lung injury was attributed to normal sort of standard e-cigarettes.
Despite all the risks, vaping has some strong supporters in the medical community.
Vaping not only helps smokers quit, it also reduces the risk to them while they continue to vape.
The key argument is that vaping isn't as dangerous as smoking cigarettes, which all experts agree is extremely harmful.
For people who are smokers who use e-cigarettes to switch completely and promptly to e-cigarettes, that is, they quit normal smoking completely, it's likely that they will be beneficial, bearing in mind that we don't know the long-term effects.
But the evidence on whether vaping does in fact help you quit smoking is mixed. A review of studies from ANU found limited evidence that e-cigarettes were effective in helping people quit.
Most people who quit smoking without any assistance at all, cold turkey.
The review also found non-smokers who took up vaping were 3 times as likely to take up cigarette smoking.
If you use e-cigarettes, you do become addicted to nicotine generally, and that's the active component in tobacco smoking.
But a more recent review of studies from the UK found evidence that quit rates for e-cigarettes with nicotine were higher compared to standard nicotine replacement therapies. While the research continues, experts agree people who aren't already smoking shouldn't take up vaping.
We don't know if vaping is going to be worse than smoking. Probably not much is worse than smoking. It's like comparing, Mount Everest to K2 to the Matterhorn or to sea level. Sea level is where things are really healthy. Everything above that is something that you really want to avoid.
A survey of 700 Australian teenagers found 70% of teens didn't buy their own vapes directly.
There is no other product that is being sold like this in such an illegal way.
What we do need now is real enforcement of the regulations and making sure that we are actually seeing use of e-cigarettes that's directed towards quitting smoking and not this widespread use that we're seeing particularly among children.
There's so much about the impact of vaping that we still don't know. It's certainly not a good thing and not without risks.
You hid your vape underneath your pillows.
Yeah.
And you would come and smoke how often?
Oh, I couldn't go longer than like 10, 15 minutes without hitting it. It was so addicting. I brought it with me everywhere I went.
Seema Herman never expected that what she thought was a harmless habit, vaping, would end up nearly killing her.
It took 2 days for my lungs to fail and I almost died.
The 18-year-old going viral with this photo from her hospital bed, a tube still pumping oxygen to her failing lungs. In her hands, a call to action.
Asked for like a pen and paper because that was the only way I could communicate. And I wrote, I want to start a no vaping campaign. That was the first thing I did when I opened my eyes.
Seema's story is just the latest in a landslide of incidents linked to vaping, sparking what many officials are calling a national health crisis.
What we've seen in the course of the past, let's say, month, is an increased number of people who are coming in with respiratory problems as a result of vaping.
So far, the Centers for Disease Control report more than 450 possible cases in 33 states of lung illness associated with vaping. And 6 deaths have been confirmed in California, Illinois, Indiana, Minnesota, Oregon, and now Kansas. Last Friday, the CDC issued a stark warning. If you are vaping, no matter how old you are, you should consider stopping.
Like, I didn't think of myself as a smoker. The vaping just makes it seem like it's nothing, like you're doing nothing wrong.
Seema was in high school when she started vaping nicotine.
I was 16 the first time, 15 even, the first time I bought it at the smoke shop. I went in and I was like, can I get a pack of Juul pods? And they were like, how old are you? And I said, 22. And they were just like, okay. It ended up becoming my oxygen. I couldn't live without it. I needed it all the time, every day. But because all of my friends were doing it all the time and no one else had symptoms that I had, I couldn't, I wouldn't even have imagined that maybe this is killing me.
Seema was an active, healthy teen. She'd been dancing for years, even making dance team her freshman year of college. But as her vaping habit increased, adding in cannabis, her ability to dance disappeared. She was vaping a cartridge a day. That's like smoking the same amount of nicotine as a pack of cigarettes in one day. Her parents had no idea their daughter had become hopelessly addicted.
This healthy dancer dancing 12 hours a week stopped dancing because of it. Stop living because of it. Stop going to school and college because of it.
Seema says she was feeling sick all the time.
Over a year, I lost like 50 pounds without trying.
50 pounds?
Yeah.
By this summer, Seema had stopped going to her college classes. She says her health issues were getting worse, but no doctor could nail down what was wrong.
Did you not tell the doctors that you vaped?
I actually did. I made sure that every hospital, every ER, every doctor's office I went to, I told them that I smoked.
But you never thought, I can't breathe, I feel like I'm gonna die. Maybe it's because I'm vaping every 10 to 15 minutes.
No doctor ever said, maybe you should stop vaping.
It all came to a head on August 15th when Seema's dad rushed her to the ER.
I said, go fast. Don't let me close my eyes. Don't let me fall asleep or I won't wake up.
Now, why did you say that?
Because I knew I was dying.
You felt death on you?
Yeah. It was terrifying. The worst part was I couldn't let it, my parents watch it happen to me.
But hospital staff couldn't figure out why Seema couldn't breathe. 2 days later, doctors had to put her on a ventilator.
I was begging them, vent her faster, she's going to die. And it was terrifying.
It was in that agonizing moment that Seema's cousin revealed her secret addiction.
She said, she smokes every day. I said, what? What are you talking about? She said, she smokes every day. She smokes that vape. I said, you tell the doctors right now. You go tell the doctors right now. And I ransacked her room and I found all the vapes. They look like gum wrappers. They look like little candy wrappers. They look like little cute mascara wands.
This progression is so fast.
Dr. Catherine Melamed is a pulmonologist at UCLA Medical Center. She worked on Seema's case.
This was Seema's chest x-ray when she came into our hospital. These hazy white areas here at the base, at the bottom of her lungs, just show that she could have a pneumonia. But what you can then see is if we choose an x-ray from just less than 48 hours later, whoa. Now her lungs, all of this white haziness here is inflammation. From just day 1 to day 3 is remarkable.
Dr. Melamed is on the front lines of what health officials fear is an emerging crisis. The National Youth Tobacco Survey found a 78% jump in e-cigarette usage among high school students alone, but any research on the impacts of vaping lags far behind.
Part of vaping is heating oil and then inhaling that oil. And that's not something the lung is used to inhaling. And so with that comes an inflammatory reaction that then produces phlegm and sputum and gives the lungs sort of that wet cough phlegm property.
That sounds terrible.
Yes.
And dangerous.
Yes.
Last month, 17-year-old Tristan Zofeld described how he spent 18 days in the hospital fighting for his life after vaping.
I woke up just throwing up everywhere, and my heart was just pounding out of my chest, going 100 miles an hour.
Tristan lost 15 pounds and said he had to relearn to walk. And just yesterday, a Texas teen had to be rushed to the hospital after vaping at school.
He hit it, he passed out, and he would not wake up. He was not waking up.
In Wisconsin today, a man was arrested for making thousands of illegal THC vaping cartridges.
Don't do it.
The state of New York is taking an aggressive approach in an attempt to find answers and crack down on black market products.
You shouldn't be vaping products that clearly you don't know what you're smoking or you're vaping.
Many vaping products are popular with young adults and teenagers, but no company has taken more heat than Juul, the industry leader. The company says it's designed to get adult smokers off cigarettes. But just this week, the FDA sent a warning letter to Juul accusing it of illegally marketing its nicotine vape products as safer than traditional cigarettes without proof. Juul responded, "We share these concerns about youth vaping." It adds it shut down its Facebook and Instagram accounts and recently began deploying new technology to verify IDs.
Is this her?
Yeah, that's her. Yeah.
But Seema's mom blames the whole industry for trying to hook kids early.
The fact that they market this crap to children and they turn it into pink, pretty purple packaging candy pisses me off.
There's a lot we don't know about the both short-term and long-term consequences of vaping. And so I would just say, don't.
In the weeks since Seema has worked to rehab her lungs, she still feels that pull to pick up the vape.
Now I don't necessarily crave the nicotine. I don't necessarily crave the weed. It's just craving like the act of smoking. So that's been my hardest thing of like staying away from it.
But she hopes that going public with her story can keep her and countless others like her alive.
What would you tell somebody who's under 18, who's thinking about vaping and says, I'm just gonna try it one time to see what it's like?
I would show them my pictures and say, I tried it once too, and then I tried it another time, and then another time. It's just remembering that you don't need it, like it's gonna kill you.
For Nightline, I'm Adrienne Bankert in Los Angeles.
All right, folks, it's going to kill you. You got your choice of poisons. So entirely up to the good people to decide, I guess, you know, what you want to do. I don't know, folks. Like I said, the best thing to do is to never start. Habits are hard to break, but if it never becomes a habit, then that's one less thing that you got to worry about, one less thing that you've got to break. Unbelievable. This vaping situation is, to say it's out of control is probably saying it mildly. And unfortunately, a lot of young people have access to it. They see it as cool. You know, they want to do it. Their friends are doing it. And I think in 10 years, all of us are going to sit back and look at this and say, gosh, we saw it coming.